My name is Katie and I'm in my first year as a space degree apprentice. It is my honour to introduce the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom and the Chancellor of the Federal Republic of Germany.
Thank you, Katie. That was really fantastic, and it was really good to meet you earlier on as well, along with the other apprentices. So thank you for introducing us. And good afternoon, everybody. It's a real pleasure to be here, to be back here, and to welcome Chancellor Merz to be alongside me at Airbus here today. I'm always amazed at this place when I come to visit. It's not my first visit, but thank you again for showing us the amazing work that you do here. This is one of the most cutting-edge facilities in Europe, home to the ExoMars rover, designed with German expertise and built right here in Stevenage. You are driving innovation in defence and space technology and making us all safer and leading us into the future. And this is the heart of what brings Friedrich and I together. We see the scale of the challenges our continent faces today, and we intend to meet them head on. But we also see the scale of the opportunities. So we have a shared resolve to shape this new era with new leadership. The UK and Germany side by side, delivering growth and security and delivering for working people. And that is why earlier today, we did something genuinely unprecedented. Building on our new agreement with the EU, together we signed the Kensington Treaty, the first ever major bilateral treaty between the United Kingdom and Germany. Two great modern European nations. It's an expression of our shared aims and values. But more than that, it's a practical work plan, setting out 17 major projects where we will come together to deliver real results which will improve people's lives. So a historic treaty, a statement of intent and ambition. And we intend to do, amongst other things, as leading NATO powers in Europe, committing not only to our mutual defence, but also to maximise the benefits of our defence spending in the shape of more jobs, more growth, and more security. Under this treaty, we will bring our industries together to boost defence exports by billions of pounds, and will speed up collaboration on high-tech weapons and equipment, strengthening NATO and keeping our people safe. Our economic links already support 500,000 British jobs. So under this treaty, we will go further with e-gate access for frequent business travellers. I know that's something very popular here. A direct rail link and a new UK-Germany business forum to boost investment. Starting today with new investments in the UK worth over £200 million. We're also deepening collaboration on science and innovation, supporting great jobs like those here at Airbus. And we're delivering new infrastructure projects, including in the North Sea energy, to produce power that is cheaper, greener, and more secure. Crucially, we're also working together on illegal migration. And I want to thank Friedrich for his leadership on this, pledging decisive action to strengthen German law this year so that small boats being stored or transported in Germany can be seized, disrupting the route to the UK. And it's a clear sign that we mean business. We are coming after the criminal gangs in every way that we can. We also discussed the appalling situation in Gaza. We are both working to support efforts towards a ceasefire and also to demand the immediate unconditional release of the remaining hostages and the immediate unconditional humanitarian access that is so desperately needed to deliver aid at volume and at speed. Finally, we discussed the situation in Ukraine. Just a few days after Friedrich took office in May earlier this year, we were both in Kyiv, shoulder to shoulder with President Zelensky. during one of the toughest moments in this horrendous war. Now we're leading the work to get the best kit to Ukraine as fast as possible. We'll keep pushing this forward together with the US and other allies, because ultimately our security starts in Ukraine. So this is a partnership with a purpose. I think it illustrates what our work on the international stage is all about. Building the foundations of stability across our continent that make us safer, boost our economy, and deliver change across for our people. It's about delivering results, and that's what we're working towards. And in a dangerous world, we do this together. So thank you, Friedrich, for your partnership and your friendship. And over to you.
Thank you, Honourable Prime Minister, dear Keir. Ladies and gentlemen, first of all, let me say that I'm really proud and happy to be here today and to enjoy your hospitality. Many thanks to the Airbus team, and many thanks for joining us this afternoon. This is, as Keir said, really an historic day. And let me turn into German. We are really on the way to a new chapter. Wir schlagen heute ein neues Kapitel auf der deutsch-britischen Beziehungen. Wir antworten gemeinsam auf die großen neuen Herausforderungen unserer Zeit, in der wir leben. Großbritannien hat zu meinem persönlichen großen und anhaltenden Bedauern
personally deplore this deeply, decided to leave the European Union. Russia is shaking the European security architecture, and the transatlantic ties are undergoing a far-reaching transformation like we've not seen for a very long time. And it is under these new conditions that it is our aim to secure the freedom, the security and the prosperity of the people of both our countries. That is really the agreement both of us have signed up to. The Prime Minister and I signed the UK-German Friendship Treaty today. We call it the Kensington Treaty, and the reason for that is a very simple one. We signed it in the V&A Museum, which happens to be located in Kensington in London. And that venue had been chosen quite carefully. The union of Queen Victoria and her German-born husband, Prince Albert, lasted a lifetime and was a happy one. I trust that is to be taken as a good omen for our treaty. And that treaty shall shape our relations for many decades and years to come. Security is the thread running through the treaty. We aim to make our contribution together, a contribution to protect and to defend the Euro-Atlantic area. Ultimately, this means that we assure each other that we're going to assist one another in case of an armed attack. And we do this in line with our commitments to NATO. However, I believe that we have to view the treaty in a broader context. Germany is linked with France through the Élysée Treaty, and in 2019, we adapted that treaty and called it the Treaty of Aachen. The United Kingdom and France are linked by the Lancaster House treaties. These agreements are complementary, thus they complement each other, and therefore it is no coincidence that I happen to be here a week after the state visit of the French President, London, Emmanuel Macron, that is. I will host Emmanuel Macron next week in Berlin, and in autumn we will have the Franco-German Council of Ministers in France. I've given those dates because they demonstrate that the E3, Great Britain, France and Germany, are converging in their positions on foreign policy, on security policy, on migration policy, but also on economic policy issues. However, this dynamic is never exclusive in nature. We're always bearing in mind Poland, Italy and the other, also smaller European partners in whatever decision we take. The new treaty is meant to change something out there, and this is why we agreed an action plan with lighthouse projects today. In the area of security and defense policy, we're building on the Trinity House Agreement of October 2024. Not that long ago, actually, that it was agreed. Together, we are developing conventional standoff weapons and uncrewed systems across all the domains, the air, the sea and the land. This strengthens our deterrence position. We want to ensure that the North Sea is better protected against hybrid threats, and we're working along the eastern flank of NATO, cooperating closely and coordinating closely regarding military support for Ukraine. And you can look also to the economic cooperation. It indicates the innovative strength of our cooperation. It is here in Stevenage that production is being made in the interest of all of us. It strengthens our defense capability in Europe. But we're doing more than just talk about security and defense. What we've agreed with will generate new growth. British and German companies are innovative, efficient and strong. Together they can even better leverage their strengths. In the field of energy policy, we aim to benefit from the opportunities that future-oriented industrial cooperation will open up. And we want to strengthen people-to-people contacts. For me personally, it's been very important, and I say this as I see so many young trainees here next to us. We want to enhance the mobility of children and youth. I believe that it is here that the impact of Brexit has been painfully evident in the past years. And the greater my pleasure that the United Kingdom has accepted to once again introduce the so-called collective list for school travellers that will facilitate the exchange of school classes without a passport or visa. And last but not least, research, technology and innovation. They are on our agenda too. We're providing new impulses, academic partnerships, scientific partnerships, improving our excellence in that area. We want to ensure that there will be more attractive conditions for scientists, academics and students in the future, allowing them to stay in Great Britain. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, today's visit also offered us the opportunity to once again talk about Ukraine. President Trump took a very important initiative on Monday. They expressed their readiness to provide weapons to Ukraine, which will be purchased and paid for by European partners. Germany wants to make an important contribution here. Of course, we have to discuss the details with our partners as quickly as possible, and we need to have clarity as how the United States will replace the weapon systems that the Europeans will transfer to Ukraine. All of that will increase the pressure on Putin to finally negotiate about peace. Europe and the United States, that is clear, are pulling in the same direction here. I would like to conclude with good news. Today is a special day also because we're celebrating the anniversary of Anita Lasker-Wallfisch. She survived the horrors of the Holocaust because she played in the Women's Orchestra of Auschwitz. For many years now, she's worked tirelessly, standing up for freedom, democracy and humanity. It is here in London that she's celebrating her 100th birthday today. We would like to congratulate her, but more than that, we thank her for the untiring work she has done over the last decades in order to keep alive the memory of the horrors of the Holocaust and to remind us time and again and to urge us time and again not to relent in our efforts to live peacefully with our neighbours in Europe. And Keir, yes, you made the point. Actually, this is quite amazing. You know that over the last decades or so, we haven't had such an initiative like the one we're here to sign, that we haven't had a UK-German friendship treaty. And therefore, I would like to thank the previous government, which has taken this initiative and engaged in the preparatory work, allowing us, the government in office now, to conclude the negotiations in record time. And it is here that in 2025, we for the first time ever have concluded such a treaty on friendship and bilateral cooperation between the United Kingdom of Great Britain, Northern Ireland and the Federal Republic of Germany. This is truly a historic day, and I feel honoured to be here as the German Chancellor today with the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom signing this treaty. We're not doing it for the benefit of the two of us. We do it for the benefit of both our countries and above all for you. And I address myself especially to the young people here. We want to provide a good perspective to you in this Europe of ours that has to continue to grow together, especially between Germany and the United Kingdom. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Friedrich. We'll now take a number of questions. I'm going to start with Beth Rigby from Sky News. Beth.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Beth Rigby, Sky News. Prime Minister, on Ukraine, President Trump has signalled he's prepared to sell more weapons to allies to send to Ukraine. The Chancellor just referenced that, including Patriot missile systems. Will the UK be involved, and how much of a game changer will this be? And I need to ask you a domestic question, I'm afraid. In 1997, when 47 MPs voted against Tony Blair's welfare plans, not a single one had the whip removed. He, like you, had a massive majority, but unlike you, he just didn't feel the need to punish MPs. Why are you so rattled by this? Doesn't it look weak? And to the Chancellor, if I may, on illegal migration, you're planning to stop people smugglers using warehouses to store boats, which is very welcome. The French have agreed a trial of a one-in, one-out solution. But aren't Britain's problems being exacerbated by European Union failing to properly police its borders? And aren't you also hurting politically at home because of this? And just quickly on Ukraine, do you think President Trump... I know,
this is one question for Beth.
I know, sorry. Sorry. Do you think President Trump is finally seeing President Putin for who he really is? And how much is that going to help Kyiv? Thank you so much. Thank you.
Beth, let me take your two first. On the question of Ukraine, obviously we've been working with our allies and with the US for a very long time now, but particularly intensely in recent weeks, to get to the position we're in now, where the President has made it absolutely clear that he wants Putin to move, and backing that up with capability, both military capability, as it were, but also economic as well. That is really important, and we are discussing it closely. We had a long discussion about it today. We discuss it almost every time we meet. And we are working together on that. Last week, of course, we had the Coalition of the Willing meeting, where we had US representation there, particularly on the question of sanctions. So we are working hard with the US on this. And I think this shows the strength of Germany, France and the UK working so closely together with other allies in Europe, but also working very closely with the US. On the domestic question, look, we were elected in to change this country for the better. And that means we've got to carry through that change, and we've got to carry through reforms, because we inherited a broken economy and broken public services. No government has inherited both of those ever before, and I'm determined that we will change this country for the better for millions of working people. And I'm not going to be deflected from that. Therefore, we had to deal with people who repeatedly break the whip, because everyone was elected as a Labour MP on the manifesto of change, and everybody needs to deliver as a Labour government. This is about what we're doing for the country, and that's why I'm so determined to press forward with the reforms and the change that we need to bring about. Thank you very much. Friedrich.
Thank you for brief questions. Have we brought enough time for today? And so I'm free. I have no other meeting today. No. Zuerst zur Ukraine.
Let me respond to the question regarding Ukraine first. I'm very grateful indeed that President Trump once again expressed his readiness in the past 2 days to continue to assist Ukraine by providing weapons. Over the last few days, we reached an agreement making sure that from the European continent new Patriot systems would be supplied to Ukraine, and that these will then be replaced by the United States, because we too have to preserve and maintain our defense capabilities. So I take it that the defense ministers will be reaching arrangements as to the logistics side of things these hours as we stand here, so as to make good on what the President of the United States promised. Now, as far as migration policy is concerned, this government, my government, has taken another step after the previous government having taken the first 2 steps, given the far too high numbers of migrants. Numbers are going down. In the second half of in the first quarter of 2025, we had roughly 20 25% less than in the same quarter last year. We have increased our efforts, but we know that border controls only have the necessary effect for a limited period of time. We don't want to damage the Schengen area, the single market. We don't want to damage the single market either, the freedom of movement of goods and of persons and of services and transportation. And so far, I personally try to do what I can in order to ensure that we can agree on common and better European regulations to better protect the external borders of the European Union. And I talked about this to the Prime Minister this morning. Our objective is to closely cooperate with the United Kingdom. The cooperation between the United Kingdom and France that was agreed last week has to be complemented by an agreement that we aim to achieve between the three of us, UK, Germany, France. We want to stand up and drastically reduce illegal migration in Europe. We are on a good path, but we haven't reached the target yet.
To that last answer, if I may, because I'm really grateful to the Chancellor for leading on this in relation to the change in German law, which is hugely important to us. As you know, we're determined to intervene at every stage of the journey that is made to bring down those that are running this vile trade. Last week, we obviously dealt with what's happening in the north of France in relation to maritime tactics and our ability to return people through the returns agreement that we agreed last week to France. But for a long time, I've been very concerned about the fact that engines in particular, but component parts of the boats that are being used are travelling through and being stored in Germany, but they can't be seized because the law didn't accommodate for a country which had left the EU and therefore needed to be amended. And I am very grateful for the Chancellor, and we've discussed this at great length on a number of occasions, is now going to change the law, introduce the necessary legislation so that we can intervene in that place. And that is the kind of leadership and cooperation that is necessary if we're going to deal with this issue. And it should be seen, as the Chancellor says, alongside the work we did with France last week. And I endorse everything that was said about the strength of the E3 relationship. Germany, France and the UK leading not just on defence and security in Europe, but on many other issues as well, most of which are reflected in the treaty that we signed this morning. Thank you very much. Can I go to Anne from Politico? Anne, please.
Hello, Anne McElvoy from Politico. Prime Minister, Herr Bundeskanzler. What difference, Prime Minister, do you think we will see in terms of the war in Ukraine from the arrangements and agreements that you've met in the last few days? There's a perception sometimes that these things are going to take years and years. If I think about something like the plan for a super Taurus, rockets and other weaponry, these are going to take years and years. And have you been putting pressure on your guest to actually deliver Taurus at the moment into the battlefields of Ukraine? And also with that in mind, before I switch over to the Bundeskanzler, what about perhaps raising pressure through economic sanctions on Russia? And is that something you've been both advocating for with the US President? Ich will vielleicht gerade hinzu, Herr Bundeskanzler, Sie haben ja doch versprochen, Taurus zu liefern,
you promised to deliver Taurus when you were not yet in the office of Federal Chancellor. You haven't acted in that regard.
Just for the fun of it, and say, es gibt heute, there's another remarkable birthday today, which we might take note of, which is Angela Merkel, your predecessor, and sometimes Parteifreundin. Did you send congratulations?
And let me start with the question about the practical application and deliverability. I think the treaty we signed this morning should be seen as, first and foremost, a work plan that we can operate to straight away in terms of our cooperation, particularly on defence and security, and the discussion that we've been having for some time between ourselves, which is that as each of our countries and other countries in Europe scale up their defence spending, it is important that that isn't just seen as a spending issue in isolation. It has to be seen as an opportunity for us to coordinate and cooperate together in procurement, in production, etc. So this is a very meaningful and changed and new forging together of what we will do on defence and security. And we can start that straight away. The Trinity House agreement that we had was really important, and we signed that last year. So there is already work ongoing. It is true that under the treaty there's longer term work as well, as you would expect, but it sets in place the way of working that we can operate and are operating to increasingly as we speak, because I think it is important to appreciate just how closely our three countries now are working on these issues. We all see this as a responsibility, but also an opportunity for Europe to step up on defence and security and work more closely together, and that's enshrined in the treaty that we signed this morning. Thank you.
Wir haben über die militärische Unterstützung der Ukraine natürlich ausführlich gesprochen.
Military support to Ukraine in great detail, of course. Not only about air defense, but also capabilities for Ukraine to use deep strike systems to better defend itself, or rather, as we call them, long-range fires. Very shortly, very soon, the Ukraine will receive additional support in that regard, also through industrial cooperation that we have started with Ukraine. We're not going to talk publicly about the details here, but the Ukraine will be much better positioned and use these systems and get the support of us with regard to those systems in the weeks and months to come. And I very much hope that the American administration will work with Congress in order to take those decisions that have been prepared for a couple of weeks and months now. We are in touch with a number of senators, Keir Starmer and I, and we do hope very much that this will lead to the respective decision on the part of the American administration. Thank you for pointing out to me that Angela Merkel is celebrating her birthday today. Of course, I sent her my best wishes. And should she become as old as Anita Lasker-Wallfisch today, I will congratulate her publicly. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll go now to Michael Fischer from DPA.
Yeah. Thank you, Prime Minister. Herr Bundeskanzler, eine Frage an Sie zunächst
Chancellor, a question to you first, if I may, coming back to the Patriots. When you say that in the next few hours an agreement will be reached as you see it, how quickly can this actually take place, the delivery of the Patriots? How many will be delivered, and which are the countries that will participate except Germany?
Both of you, to what extent are you both willing to buy weapons in the US to deliver to Ukraine, even beyond air defense? And since we are here at Airbus Defence and Space, one question to weapons exports in general, which is part of the treaty. Did you talk about the export of Eurofighter Typhoon? And are you both ready to deliver them to Turkey?
Yeah. You first?
No, you go first.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, Mr. Fischer, just to be clear, I didn't say that this decision will happen in the next few hours, but the defense ministers are negotiating as we stand here also with regard to the details concerning the delivery. So how can we make sure that Ukraine is being supplied with the necessary systems? These systems have to be transported there, they have to be set up. It's not a matter of hours, but perhaps a question of days or weeks. But it's a concrete thing. We have not... The readiness has been expressed on the side and the part of the Americans to engage with us in that regard. As far as export authorizations are concerned, we have not had a decision yet, but we are on the path towards a good decision that will lead or should make possible such an export license. We will have to wait and see. I'm not going to speak about what countries we are thinking of in that regard.
In relation to Ukraine, obviously we're working with allies on the provision of capability. We have been for some considerable period throughout this conflict. And the backup, if you like, that sits behind that to make sure that any capability is effective in Ukraine. And that's why we've done, amongst other things, a lot of leading work on the training of those who are in Ukraine, those that are going to the front line in relation to the capability that is being provided. So the two marry up together, and we'll continue to do so. And this is now an intense period as we go through the remaining days of this 50-day period, and it has to be coupled with economic pressure and the sanctions that will be necessary if Putin doesn't come to the table. President Zelensky has shown months ago now his willingness to come to the table in pursuit of lasting peace. It's now for Putin to come to the table. And I think that's very clear from what President Trump has said in recent days. On the question of exports, we discussed this today at some length, and that we intend to have export campaigns more jointly together, coordinated together. That is a good thing for both of our countries, and it's a good thing for Europe and beyond. And so we have not only discussed that, but also begun to take the steps to make sure that this is much more coordinated, much more joined up, and much more cooperative. And again, all of this is further evidence of the closeness of the relationship as it now is between Germany and the UK, and a statement of intent about how we intend to work going forward. Thank you very much. And I think I've got Arne from Bloomberg.
Ja, thank you. Herr Bundeskanzler, eine Frage zum
Chancellor, a question regarding the EU budget, the proposal submitted by Brussels yesterday. The impression we've gained is that you have felt insufficiently informed in advance, so that things, or rather decisions, or the proposal came as a surprise for you. Do you see any chance whatsoever for a compromise on the basis of the proposal that has been submitted by the Commission President? Or do we foresee a major conflict here between Berlin and Brussels and possibly other capitals in Europe?
And to the Prime Minister, I just asked the Chancellor about the EU budget, so you are probably lucky that you don't have to deal with that anymore. But I wanted to ask you on Ukraine and your proposal, which I think originally comes from you, for peacekeeping forces for Ukraine. How realistic do you still think is your proposal? I mean, right now we are only talking about weapons and tanks and typhoons, etc. So do you still see a possibility for that in the near future? And also, are you still sticking to this idea that the UK and others would also send boots on the ground? Did you also talk to the Chancellor about this possibility?
Ja, Herr Dev, vielen Dank für die
Thank you, Mr.
Frage.
Dev, for your question.
Wir haben über diese Themen
We
gesprochen in der
talked
Europäischen Union.
about these
Das war auch bereits
issues
Thema
in the European
am letzten
Union, and it was on the
Europäischen
agenda of the
Rat.
last European
Die Details
Council.
werden natürlich
Of course,
in
the
der
details are being
erarbeitet.
drafted and prepared by the Commission of the European Union. I wasn't taken by surprise. This was a process, has been a process that meant quite a tough struggle within the Commission. The proposal that's been put on the table now is good to the extent that it changes the weighting of the different positions. Defense and security is an area now where we clearly identify that we in the European Union intend to do more than we've done so far. But what needs to be discussed is the total amount of the budget and how it is funded. As I see it, I'd like to say that I cannot accept a tax on companies by the European Union. I don't think there's any legal basis allowing the European Union to do so. We could take a unanimous vote on that if need be, but as far as Germany is concerned, I can exclude Germany pursuing such an approach. Our aim is not to increase the burden on companies in order to create leeway for the European Union. That is not acceptable. We will also have to discuss the way in which the budget is being funded. Question, indebtedness, increasing debt has been used for exceptional purposes, but what we're experiencing these days is in a way the new normal. But in this new but unfortunately also normal side, the European Union will have to make do with the funds that it has at its disposal. So this means it will be a tough struggle for the next 2 years in order to make sure that the MFR, as far as that MFR is concerned, it will be a tough strife in the next 2 years.
In relation to Ukraine, I think it's really important to see how this all fits together. The first thing we need to do is to get Putin to the table for an unconditional ceasefire. And that is why we've been talking for some time about peace through strength. And that is why we must provide Ukraine with the capability it needs to be in the strongest possible position, and hence the intense work in recent days and weeks on capability. But that's not new. That's a discussion that's been going on for a very, very long time, coupled, of course, with the economic sanctions, again, intended to get us to the position where Putin gets to the table and we are beginning that discussion about peace and a ceasefire. But the reason the Coalition of the Willing was set up in the first place is because it must then be, if we get to that point, a lasting peace. Because we've been to this point before where we've had a cessation in the conflict only for that to be breached by Putin, and we cannot go down that route again. That was the thinking behind the Coalition of the Willing, and the question we were answering is, what then do we need to have in place in order to ensure that if there is a peace, if there is a ceasefire, it is a lasting ceasefire. I'm very glad that we began that work months ago now, and we've had our military planners from a number of countries working on plans. They are plans for the air, for the sea, and yes, for land. And the fourth component is strengthening the Ukrainian capability itself to ensure that that remains in place and is stronger after any ceasefire. So they're the four component parts. That does include a land element. I'm satisfied, and so are the other members of the Coalition of the Willing, that those plans are now completed as far as they can be until we get to a ceasefire, which is why we had the meeting of the Coalition of the Willing last week to sign off those plans. But they are advanced plans now. They are capable of being operationalised. I am convinced that we've got to this stage that it's important we did that work now. I wouldn't want to start that work after a ceasefire because it takes time to get military plans that are pretty specific in place. We now have them in place. There's a headquarters in Paris, which has been now in place for about a month. And most importantly, and often the most difficult, we've got a command structure in place so that the plans can move from the plan stage to being operationalised very quickly. And so that's the path as I see it. Strengthen Ukraine with capability, have the lever of sanctions and further sanctions in relation to Russia to put the pressure on, get to a point where there's a ceasefire, and then ensure that any ceasefire is lasting, fair and enduring, and that's where the work of the Coalition of the Willing has been so important. And as I say, I'm very pleased that last week we got to the point of saying the military plans are now developed as far as they need to be, and we've got command structures in place so we can operationalise it. Thank you all very much indeed.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good.